everybody and welcome to one of my very few Genshin videos. This time, as you can see from the title, we will showcase my C6R1 Yoimiya in all kinds of different teams. I've prepared 12 runs for you to show off different teams, different artifact sets, and basically just show you all kinds of ways you can play Yoimiya. The reason I wanted to make this video is because the last abyss was amazing for Yoimiya. The second side had 3 single target bosses, which is basically the thing Yoimiya excels at. Also, we in Yoimiya mains sometimes joke about how people mistreat our Yoimiya and yeah, basically use teams or setups that are not optimal for her, or sometimes screw up rotations, don't double swirl Pyro and Hydro when they actually do Viridescent Vanilla stuff with Kazuha or other stuff. But for that I also have to make some disclaimer things, basically explaining, like for example, I am not a speedrunner. Like, I am not really someone who cares about rotations and optimal play. I try to do them in some way or form, and I got some help from Yoimiya mains as well, but like posting some of the videos I recorded, and then they explained to me what I should do differently, and I tried that. So this is basically the result. But also, at some point I got somewhat annoyed by the first half, so I didn't really want to redo it all over again. And you will see that sometimes because I don't have always full energy at the start of every chamber. So basically, yeah, there's just some issues there. And of course, I also screwed up rotations, especially on teams I don't use very often myself, like even Mono Pyro. Yes, you can't really screw up that much in Mono Pyro, but I did. Also, for Yoimiya C6 is something very important. C0 Yoimiya, when you are doing a usual vape team like with Yelan, which we have here, you usually vape her first normal, then her third, and lastly her fifth. With a C6 Yoimiya, it's a bit different, because if you can, you have to watch closely a bit. Sometimes she's shooting an extra arrow, like the first shot she shot 3, and there she shot another one. This screws up her internal cooldown. That's why in this video I won't get the highest damage all the time. Like usually your 5th hit will be the strongest, and that will get like a really high number. But my C6 Yoimiya won't get that consistently. Sometimes maybe, but not consistently. And that's also a reason why C6 Yoimiya usually likes some other stats more. Like attack is usually better than EM for C6 Yoimiya, while a C0 to C5 Yoimiya likes EM sense really, really much, because then her strongest attacks get even more amplified. But yeah, otherwise I'm doing many mistakes I will show a lot of, and I hope you will enjoy this video. This is not going to be any how to build Yoimiya or whatever. This is not a guide. I just want to show off my teams and have some fun. If you want to know more, you can come to Yoimiya mains. You can watch any of the other guides. Usually they are fine, as long as you watch the people who actually know what they're talking about. Alright, with that over, let's go and see what this firework girl can do and get some explosions in. Let's go! And we're starting off with a basic Yoimiya vaporized team. In this team, usually Yoimiya uses a Shimenawa set, which makes using her burst a bit awkward. That's why I am not using it at all. You need certain energy recharge thresholds to use your burst every second rotation. Basically, it would make it a bit stronger, but I'm not that great at it, so I'll just not use my burst. Otherwise, we are rocking a Yelan with elegy for the end. She herself won't do as much damage as other Yelans around, but the elegy of the end buffs our Yoimiya as well. Then we use Zhongli as the strongest shield in the game. He can also decrease resistances, which this team otherwise can't do if you use any other shielder. I personally also like to use Layla there, or you can use any other shielder like Thoma or whatever, but you will lose on the benefits I just said. Then we also have Bennett on Noblesse set, because it's Bennett with a Noblesse set. He's using the Sapwood blade. If we get the time, we can catch the leaf to get another elemental mastery bonus, but we are not aiming to do so, just focus on our rotations and Yoimiya's normal attacks. Alright then let's see how this team works out. The positive aspect of this team is it has a shield, so yeah, you can do whatever you want. You want to use Bennett as the last one, yelan as the first one, so her buff can stack up, and then you just basically attack. This team can't really deal with Azimon's invisibility phase. You just wait and then set up your new rotation before he comes back, and then you just pew again. Of course, my Yoimiya is really strong, so 2 rotations is more than enough to beat it. If your Yoimiya takes a bit longer, you just repeat the same thing again. Next up is the Jade Plume Terror Shroom. As you can see, Yelan and Bennett don't have the energy, but because I have C1 Yelan and Benny is pretty close to his ult as well, we can just continue on and then just face tank everything, because Zhongli's shield is pretty strong. Even though my Zhongli is not fully shield built, it's more than enough. For Jade Plume in this team setup, we need 2 rotations, as you can see. It's not really easy to maintain, not really hard to maintain though. And yeah, we just set up again and get our kill here. And last but not least, we are at Coppelia. I might have reset here to have full energy, I'm not sure, can't remember. And yeah, we just do the same thing, set up with Yelan, get our shield up, and pew pew. Now here, Zhongli's shield is not quite strong enough, which is why I'm evading sometimes, and also trying to not get into the little turbulences on the side. And also, which is pretty important, I set up the pillar pretty far away and Bennett's ult also, so that I'm not standing in her swirl attacks all the time. Because otherwise my Zhongli's shield will still break and hurt me a lot. And probably kill me. A quick look at our clear times, we can see it was all around 35 seconds, total of 107 seconds. It's pretty good. But remember, this is a C6 Yoimiya, so don't worry if your Yoimiya clears it a bit slower, that's just how it is. Which brings us to the next point, which I wasn't sure if I want to even include, the highest damage. The reason being that I recorded these videos on several days, so the cards for the Abyss were always kinda different, and as I explained before, Yoimiya C6 makes the highest damage a bit of a gamble, because she doesn't always vape her last hit. That's why a Yoimiya with a lower constellation with this setup might even hit a higher vaporize and out damage me, but my C6 of course gives me some extra damage in between, which generally makes my Yoimiya clear faster. But in the end I decided to still include it, because it's still a little bit nice to see, hey, what can my Yoimiya hit? Especially when compared to the numbers on later teams, which have way more buffs. Alright, for the next team, we stick with Vape Yoimiya, and I'll only show the one change we have, which is swapping out Bennett with this Yunjin. Yunjin basically gives you at C6 an attack speed, and also increases normal attack damage depending on her defense after her burst. Which makes her a really good Yoimiya support, and yeah, we also have the Geo Resonance in this case, which also increases our Yoimiya's damage while she is in the shield. So let's see how this performs in comparison to Bennett. The setup is basically the same. You start with Yelan, use your Zhongli to get a shield, and then use Yunjin. The positive point is you don't have to worry about standing in a circle, but you can just attack with Yunjin and use her burst. Yunjin, however, is a bit more energy hungry, which is why I'm using 2 Favonius weapons in this case. Otherwise, this team can also not really deal with the invisibility phase, so you just set up again and then smack him. Alright, next up is our Dino Shroom. We use the same setup. You can see Yunjin has some energy issues though, so we need to wait a little bit before we use his skill, and then we can attack. Again, the positive aspect about this team is we don't really get shoved out of the circle like we did with the Bennett team, which happened last time. Other than that, I'm making a little mistake here. I should have just seen that I'm getting damage in. Instead I set up again, which I didn't need because you can see it's already dead. Which is why I had some energy issues for the next floor, so I had to reset and get some extra energy. And the last fight, Coppelia. We start as usual, Yelan, setting up, then Zhongli, even though I accidentally switched to Yunjin. Now we use Yunjin, and then we attack. I'm pretty uncareful here though, just standing in the swirl attack there, and that will come to bite me now, because I'm taking some damage here from the little swirl. And this was the next mistake. I used Zhongli first, stand in the middle, basically deplete his shield, and then don't go out of the circle of Coppelia. Which is why I'm taking a lot of damage here and get interrupted. Which does make it so I take a bit longer to win and almost died. Yeah, I still should have just went out of the way and not stand in the circle, and then everything would have been fine. But anyway, let's look at the clear times. And as you can see, Azimon and the Shroom actually took a bit less than with Benny. Coppelia took a bit longer, but I also did the mistake there, so that might be the explanation. In total, we were 2 seconds faster. The highest damage also was a bit higher, with 94,570 damage. This can be explained by the Geo Resonance and that my Yunjin is okay build, while Bennett kinda has still the option to equip a 5-star sword, which Yunjin doesn't have, but I don't have a 5-star sword and he is using one of his best options for 5-star weapons. So it's quite interesting to see that Yunjin actually outperforms Bennett, but if you ask around Yoimiya mains and general guides, usually Yunjin actually is just better. Especially if we consider that my Bennett is actually C6 and gives my Yoimiya another Pyro % bonus, which many people don't do. So yeah, Yunjin is a very solid option thanks to the Geo Resonance. You just have to be patient and farm her, and the set is pretty bad to farm. As for the next team, we are going with the Hypercarry Yoimiya. Basically the first Shieldless team. This time we use Yunjin and Bennett to buff our Yoimiya to even greater heights. Compared to the Zhonglin teams, of course, this team will deal more damage and should in theory be faster. Let's see what will happen. First off, Azimon. We start with Yelan again to get as much power for her as we can. Then we use Yunjin, generate a little shield, which can help us, and then use Bennett and just wail on the enemy. We kill the stuff pretty fast, and we also have enough energy to get in our next rotation, though I'm not sure if I got enough energy for the next fight or if I reset. I'm not sure. Anyway, we attack. This attack doesn't actually knock us back, and we can just stand in Bennett's field and attack through it and kill Azimon pretty fast. And next up, our friend the Terror Shroom. We start with Yelan again. Use a burst. And now we can see we have a little energy issue. I didn't reset for Yunjin. Use a burst. Swap to Bennett, use his burst. Evade this attack, because otherwise I would have been knocked back, and then attack him. And we can already see a few higher numbers, like I saw 130,000 here. So yeah, you can see this team has just way more damage on Yoimiya personally. But I also don't have enough energy for Yunjin here, so I just go with the ult on Bennett. and just attack. That's a little bit of an issue with this team, my energy. Last but not least, Coppelia. We start again with Yelan and Yunjin. I think I reset to have energy here, but I'm also doing a lot of mistakes. Like here, I use my Bennett skill right in the face of Coppelia, which then will lead to me taking a lot of damage because of the swirls. I also didn't evade the first attack, but yeah, I will do that again, and it's really not good in terms of gameplay. But it's pretty nice still to see what happens if you don't play as well with this team. There I get interrupted again, and then I can finally attack, but I'm outside of Bennett's range for a bit. Yeah, very sloppy. That's basically how it shouldn't be. Funny how with the shield I was actually playing better. So, now let's take a look at the clear times. We were in total 3 seconds slower than in the first team, but that is with the mistakes on Coppelia especially. The Terror Shroom also took a bit longer, but our highest damage on the Terror Shroom actually was 131,000, so quite a lot higher than the other teams. Why was I so slow then? Well, of course the mistakes. And on the other point, it's basically because Yelan did a bit less damage. Her skill, or better her burst, dealt 6,400 in this run, while with Zhongli, because of the shred, she dealt 7,500. And as often as her arrows hits, that accumulates quite a lot as well. So I would say it's actually pretty similar, but you do have the issue that you have to be a bit more careful because you don't have a shield. Now, next up we have the Viridescent Venera team. We throw out all the Geo and defensive units to put in the swirl unit Kazuha. He's not very high invested, like he's still pretty good, 900 elemental mastery using the umbrella weapon, but he is not like C2 with Freedom Sword or whatever, so he's a very good support unit still. And yeah, what makes this team so special? Basically, Kazuha has the option to swirl both Hydro and Pyro, which increases Yoimiya and Yelan's damage, which in turn increases the overall damage of the whole team. That is also why this team is technically Yoimiya's strongest overall team. Let's see what it can do. We are starting off, of course, with Azimon, and we start with Yelan. And here I want to make a little break and explain you something. Look closely. After Yelan's burst, we have Hydro on the enemy. Now, when Bennett uses his ult, he vaporizes, but there's still Hydro on the enemy. Kazuha's hold E skill will now swirl Hydro while going up, and when going down, he will swirl Pyro. You don't want to use your ult, because now you have both buffs. And now let us look at it again in real time. Bennett's burst to vaporize, swirl Hydro, swirl Pyro, attack with Yoimiya. Look at the damage of Yelan. She does 9,700, before she was at 7,500. And that is why this team is so strong. It buffs as well Yoimiya as well as Yelan. It buffs both, so you get the best of both worlds and just deal way more damage overall. There we go again, 9,700, and we can burst him down. So, and next, on the Terror Shroom we can see what happens when I mess up. The first rotation works really well. We use everything in the right order. We have our double swirl of Hydro and Pyro. Yelan deals 9,200 damage. But now I get knocked away, lose some damage there. And on our second rotation we can see I start with Yelan, but my Bennett doesn't have his burst, so I have to use his skill. And then he doesn't have his Hydro application anymore, so I can swirl Hydro. And then I will only deal 5,300 damage with my Yelan arrows. So this can happen when you mess up, and that is why this team is not the easiest to play. Let's see how it goes against Coppelia. Here you can see I reset to have full energy because energy management with this team is also a bit of an issue. First rotation is basically fine. I get the double swirl, but I did set Bennett's burst in the middle, so I get disrupted by the attacks of Coppelia, which of course doesn't help my DPS a lot. Now on the second rotation I would have been able to do the right thing, but just because I'm used to it I used Bennett's E again, and thus destroyed my double swirl. So yeah, it's a big issue when you are not used to this team, because you have to really get out your habits of just using Bennett's E whenever you switch him in. Anyway, it still worked kinda well, and now let's look at the times. And as you can see, everyone took about 32 seconds this time, resulting in our lowest time yet with 97 seconds. Yeah, this team is pretty strong, but what is even more interesting is the highest damage. Our highest damage was on a N5 Vaporize on the Terror Shroom, and you can see it dealt whopping 168,558. But as you can see, I also hit a Vaporize on an N3 during Coppelia, which also dealt 150,972 damage. So yeah, this team definitely is the strongest of the ones we have shown so far. It's the fastest, it has the highest one-hit damage, it's just really good. It's technical and you can screw up a lot, of course, and you don't have a shield, so you might also die. But, as people said, this is technically Yoimiya's highest damage ceiling team. Which brings us to the next team, Double Hydro Furina. This team is the first team where we change up Yoimiya's artifact set. And I have to make a few little remarks as well. My Marchese Hunter set isn't really bad, as you can see, but it's definitely not as good as my Shimenava set. Also, usually when you play Furina and Bennett together, you want Bennett on a healing set, because Bennett can overheal Yoimiya to trigger her passive, but yeah, he has to heal in one fell swoop. And on this set, he doesn't really do that, but it still kinda works and I'm too lazy to swap. So this team is definitely not the optimal way to play this team, but I want to show it off anyway. So let's hop into it. Thanks to having the Hunter set, we can use Yoimiya's burst right at the start to get some extra damage in. Then we use Furina and her ult to gain some stacks, and we use Bennett to also passively gain some stacks. However, I did a mistake. I should have just set up my next rotation here already with yelan, which I don't, and then I also screw up the rotation by using Bennett first and then Furina burst. But it doesn't really matter that much, we can still kill this guy really fast on the next rotation. Let's see if we can do better on an enemy that doesn't have an invisibility phase. Alright, so next up is the Dendro Chicken. We start with our burst, use Furina and burst, use yelan and want to burst but miss it because we didn't have it yet. Get smacked, lose a bit time, and then we get to Yoimiya finally. You can see we don't have full fanfare stacks yet. They will activate in a bit now, but we did manage to one-rotate the chicken. Let's see how Coppelia goes. And of course, on Coppelia we also start with our rotation. I actually forget that I wanted to use Yoimiya's burst. I'm not sure why I forgot, but I did. But yeah, here I don't make the mistake, I go farther away. I also, because of the I get some damage and I had damage before, I can get the stacks a bit faster. Now I remember that I can also use the burst. And I also see like, I can actually maybe kill Coppelia almost in one cycle, and then I screwed up the whole rotation, but we still finished it off. And because I was spamming circle, I left the abyss. But now, let's take a look at the clear times, and surprisingly this team even beat out the Kazuha Swirl team. It took it only 93 seconds in total. Azimon was actually the slowest, but the one rotating Terror Shroom is just insanity in 22 seconds. Coppelia was also relatively fast, even though I didn't use Yoimiya's burst. For the highest damage we can see I hit a N5 Vaporize on Azimon, which was the highest damage. Otherwise I never got to any N5 Vapes, so I'm not sure if I could have hit higher, but yeah, that's the point where we at with this team. Really surprising, this team works really well thanks to Yelan and Furina. We have also enough energy for our Hydro application. This team is just pretty solid. You just have to stay alive. Alright, on to the next one. And what would be better than mixing these two teams and make a Viridescent Vanilla Swirl Furina? Now, this team is a bit hard, way harder than the Yelan Viridescent Vanilla Swirl. One reason is because of Furina's energy recharge. I'm not sure if I have enough at all to keep her up in this way, but it somehow works and I reset in the worst case. Also, the double swirl with Kazuha is also a bit harder, and it could be that Yoimiya overtakes the aura and Furina will be the one who is vaporizing. Which makes it even more important that you have the double swirl, because otherwise your vaporizers will be way weaker. But yeah, let's see how this one works out and if it's faster. So, first up, Azimon. We start with Yoimiya's burst, then we use Furina and Kazuha to swirl Hydro. Then we use Kazuha again to swirl again, and to be honest, I was just trying to preserve my energy so that I can smack him once he gets out of this move, but I completely screwed it up. But I was also too lazy to redo this, because it's somewhat difficult. So instead, let's just kill this guy, which is still pretty fast, and then we will try it again on an easier enemy to do this. And who else would be the best to bully for these teams than our Shroom? We do burst with Kazuha this time to have more Hydro application. Then I miss-swap to Furina, get some smack in my face, but I managed to get the double swirl and then attack with my Yoimiya. And as you can see, he is melting. And there was a really high number of to Coppelia. And here we are. Pretty damaged already, but let's go. Starting with the burst of Yoimiya, then of course Furina. Burst Kazuha to get swirl on Hydro. Get the double swirl, and then get in some damage. And the damage is also pretty good. And as we can see, thanks to Kazuha's burst, we can actually keep up the Hydro. Now we see the issue though. I don't have enough energy neither for Kazuha nor for Furina, which makes this quite a bit awkward. But in the end I just decide to go Yoimiya and finish this fight off. So yeah, that is the issue I have with this team. The energy, which is really iffy if you can't one rotate like I did with the chicken. But it can be changed if you just adjust your energy a bit more or give yourself some Favonius weapons, then it makes it a lot easier. But I'm lazy. So yeah, let's see our results. And as you can see, we beat the time slightly. It's really similar basically. But we did beat out the Shroom time and now have a 20-second clear even. Azimon is kinda like weird and Coppelia was a bit slower because of the weird rotation. But the team before was way easier on the whole energy thing. So yeah, if I would change some substats to have enough energy, this time might be a little bit slower. But it's still very fun and is pretty technical to play, but does a lot of damage, which shows on the highest damage as well, which is a 176,411, which is one of the highest damages my Yoimiya ever did on normal enemies, not like weakened Scaramouche. So yeah, very interesting team, try it out. We will go to the next one, and from now on we are going to start with teams that are a bit worse, but have their own unique perks and interesting stuff to them. And starting off is a typical Yoimiya overload team. Of course, we will get Chevreuse soon, and this team might change quite a bit. Maybe no Bennett, maybe just Chevreuse instead of Bennett. But still, I really like this team, and I used it for several abysses now, when the typical vape wasn't as good. Especially against Azimon, you will see its application. In this case also, we went with the typical Shimenawa set again on Yoimiya. Otherwise, Fischl won't buff Yoimiya. Instead, she will just do her own damage with the Golden Troop set. So basically, this damage will be worse than back with the Vaporize team. But let's see what this team can do. And of course, Azimon will be our first victim. Though I make, again, little mistakes here, like I'm swinging with Bennett instead of just summoning also right away. And then we will just attack. Now, what this team can do really well, it can actually kill these structures pretty fast with Overload. And now I could attack with Fischl on these little things and, yeah, weaken him or, like, stun him at least. Which I didn't do, I was just a bit late on my rotation there. But I can still just attack through it. What is interesting here, Fischl actually gets an attack buff from Bennett's field, that's why you want to use Bennett first and then summon Oz. While Yelan didn't get any attack buff, Fischl does. And next is our favorite chicken. We start off with the Zhongli pillar to get our shield, get our burst up. I like to use Fischl's burst first because, well, it refills after a while because you get energy. And then you can use her skill on the next rotation, because otherwise you will have a little bit of downtime. So now I can start my burst again. My Zhongli shield died in between. I summon Oz here, as I said. And on the next rotation, Fischl should have her ult back. Yeah, it's a bit slower than the Vaporizers, but it's still fine. And I accidentally left. So, next up is Coppelia. And you can see that was one of the points where I was kinda like bummed out already. And I didn't really make sure I have all my energy. I also used his ult, so this won't be a good time. Because I also whiffed his ult. That's just a really sloppy fight. It's not good at all. I'm sorry, but I wasn't in the mood to redo it. Especially because of the next team we do. But you will see what I mean. Just call our Oz again. It takes way longer. Vaporize is just really powerful, even if you can't vaporize consistently on the big hits. It's just a way bigger damage increase. Overload only ramps up with your elemental mastery, and my Yoimiya doesn't have that much elemental mastery, so you can see the overloads doing a bit damage, but not as much. Let's look at the times and see how much we do. And as you can see, Azimon took 36 seconds, the Terror Shroom 32 seconds, which is a pretty good time, but then Coppelia took 61 seconds to 62 seconds, and yeah, we averaged over 128 seconds the first time we went over the 2 minutes total. The highest damage was very low, it was only at 63,000, because basically you have to imagine this team as a mono Pyro Yoimiya team, but you get the occasional overloads which deal their extra instance of damage. In this case 3554 when Yoimiya triggered the overload, but Fischl did so as well, and she has a higher EM stat, so she did 7258. That is not a lot and explains why those times were way worse. And also it shows that triggering the overload with Yoimiya is kinda iffy. Let's see how it goes with the next team. And with going on, I mean we use the same exact team, but we use a Crimson Witch Yoimiya. Because the Crimson Witch of Flame set gives you a bonus to your overload, and also you can get your burst. And the burst also gives your other characters an attack buff, which Fischl likes. Also, yeah, Fischl can trigger Yoimiya's burst as well, so we will probably get some extra damage, and this should go quite a bit faster and better. Let's see where the difference lies. Alright then, let's see how much of a difference this set actually does. We start the same as before, but now we just attack. And once these little spinnies come to us, we can use our ult and actually kill these really fast. Here again, I'm screwing up a bit. I wanted to use Fischl but swapped to the wrong one. And then I use Bennett before I use Zhongli, which was also not the best idea. But you can see it should be fine. We lost maybe one attack string right at the end here, where we just have to attack once more here. Yeah, pretty good actually. Let's see how it goes for the Shroom. So, for the Shroom, we didn't quite have Benny's ult, so we just used the skills reversed, and yeah, still worked pretty well. And then I realized, oh damn, I didn't use my Yoi ult. So I did make a little mistake, and I could have cleared it a bit faster if I used Yoi's ult first. But here we go, and we can see we are shredding through him pretty well. Of course, it's not the one rotation, but it's still pretty good. We get our Fischl back and finish this guy off. Off to Cabelia. And now, can this overload team redeem itself? We start off with the burst. Yeah, we don't have Bennett sadly, and that's a big issue. And I'm sorry, but I wasn't really feeling like resetting this whole thing, so I just kept going on this one. And just start off the new rotation.
Stabilize.
Way a bit, and then get the first real rotation in. Sadly, this basically means I will deal quite a bit less damage, but hey, there we go, another ult. Bennett still doesn't have his ult back yet. So I don't know, my Bennett I guess doesn't have enough energy. Maybe I should go back to a Favonius weapon on him. But there we go. Let's take a look how well it fared now that we had the Crimson Witch set. And as we can see, it was pretty similar. Like, the Crimson Witch set is nice, and I did some mistakes, but in general Azimon and Terrashroom took even a bit longer, while Coppelia was faster, but I also did way less mistakes against Coppelia herself. In terms of the damage, you can see the overload of Yoimiya was quite a bit stronger, 5000 damage more. Fischl also somehow hit higher, I'm not sure why, but she did. But a big issue is the highest damage of Yoimiya herself. She went down by about 10,000 because the Shimenawa set of course increases her normal attacks by way more, and thus we tank a lot of damage there. And that's basically why those two sets are very similar in the overall outcome. But there's another team that we will be going on to now, and let's see how that one does. And that will be an Overvape team. Basically, Overvape means you have Electro charged, meaning Electro and Water is on the enemy at the same time, and then you hit with a Pyro attack, triggering Vaporize and Overload at the same time. I'll also stick with the Crimson Witch set here. I didn't try it out with the Shimenawa set to have a baseline comparison, which is kinda sad, but I forgot, and now I can't redo it, so let's just see how this goes. And of course, Azimon is the first. We start with Yelan because her burst is the longest duration, then we get Zhongli's shield out, get Oz out, and just start smacking. We don't have to worry about any field to stay in like with Bennett, so we can just attack. So, now that we've broken the little things, we start a new rotation with the burst of Yoimiya, which I didn't use at the start because, well, I didn't want him to go invisible while he had his burst on. And now we get this one. And as you can see, there are a lot of numbers. And it works pretty well. Let's go to the shroom. And let's start with the shroom. You can see my ults are not up. But this team is way easier to maintain your ults. So there's no issue to just get them out now. And then start our rotations. For the second rotation we also use Yoimiya's burst, because of course we didn't have it right away. There it is. And then we start our new rotation, and yeah, we can just do it with pretty much minimal delay. And then we just go on and attack more and more. This team feels really nice, and you can see it kills pretty fast as well. Off to Coppelia. And here we are. We don't have our ults again, but just as before, we can just get them back. In this case, I actually used Fischl first. I don't know if it's right or not. Usually it's not. But in this case, I was like, okay, I can heal with Fischl's ult, so I'd rather have Yoimiya's shield up for a longer period of time so that it doesn't break. Then, second rotation, we use Yoimiya's ult. Get Yelan's ult back without issues. Get Fischl out, I don't know where I went there. And then we just get our shield and smack again. Sadly, I am not able to rotate this with this set. But I'm pretty close, and now I am going through the full rotation. Basically, I should have probably just went to Yoimiya here now and just attacked. But I went through the full rotation and just finished this off. So yeah. Let's look at our times and the damages. And as you can see, I actually took more time. I was about 2 seconds slower. Why is that? Our highest damage is higher, yes, because we did get 1 and 5 Vaporize on Azimon, which, yeah, was just a bit higher damage. But remember, on the last one we didn't have any Vaporizers. So in general, without Bennett, we lose a lot of damage, because as well as Yoimiya, also Fischl loses quite a bit of damage. The overload was higher, and that's pretty nice, but overall we were a bit slower. The team, however, felt way better. And now we do the same that we did before with Furina. We now bring in Bennett to see what happens then. Screw defense. And yeah, there's not much more to say. This is the team, this time with Bennett instead of Zhongli. Let's see if it has some redemption. It will be, however, a bit more dangerous. Starting with Azimon, of course, we start with Yelan, then use Bennett to get Fischl an extra attack buff as well, because I think all snapshots. I'll get hit here, which is a bit annoying, but I can still finish off these small fries very quickly. I don't really have the time to actually set up with Fischl and aim at the guys, but because of the ult and good positioning, I was able to stun it anyway. And now we one-rotated. And that felt pretty good. Let's see if we can do it on the Jade Plume as well. And to start the Terror Shroom, we start with Yoimiya's burst this time, then Yelan, then Bennett, and then Fischl. I didn't use Fischl's burst here, which is kinda sad. And I also had to evade a few attacks here, so I couldn't do the full combo strings. Now I could pretty much attack though, and use my bursts again. Bennett wasn't quite full though, so I guess Bennett is my weak link in this teams. And now I attacked this mushroom and got hit for it, which is kinda sad. We could probably get a few seconds faster here. But okay, let's see how Coppelia goes. For Coppelia, we can see we don't have any of our ults, which is kinda sad. Yelan can get it at least really fast. Bennett, at least in this case as well. I'm positioning myself so that I can attack. Had to evade there though. And then we can actually wail at our opponents. And actually we do quite a lot of damage. We went over half in the first rotation. Set up our second. But here I make, of course, a mistake. Go way too close with Bennett ult. And don't use Oz in Bennett's field. But use Oz first instead. But still, we managed to beat it without any issues. Let's look at the times and the damage. And here we can see it was finally a pretty competitive time with the first few runs. 109 seconds, Azimon took 34 seconds, the Terror Shroom took a bit longer, but again, we could have maybe gotten 2 seconds there if I didn't get knocked away, and Coppelia was way faster again with 39 seconds. The highest damage was also at 106,000, the overload was a bit slower because there was no resistance shred with Zhongli, but yeah, overall this team was quite nice to use. Of course there are some energy issues, but yeah, it's fine. And up next, the last type of team I want to show off, which is Mono Pyro. Technically, Mono Pyro is the team that C6 Yoimiya gets her most benefit out of, but I personally don't like Mono Pyro. You can play it in several versions. I will show off 2 of them. One is double Pyro, double Geo, basically using Yunjin and Bennett as your buffer and Zhongli as a shield and Geo resonance buff. And yeah, let's see how this one fares. Starting off, Azimon, who would have guessed? This time again, we don't really have any way to deal with his invisibility phase. So we just go on, use our stuff, deal as much damage as we can here, smack his small stuff down, and then just deal some chip damage on the invisible guy. And then start off our rotation, so that we can almost start attacking once he gets back. And just attack. Of course this team will not have as high of a damage like vaporized teams, but you can see, pretty okay. Jade Plume. Alright, the Shroom is next. We start off getting our shield. Getting some energy for Yunjin and for Bennett, use our ult, and then start doing damage. Even though we don't have any reactions, the damage is pretty nice. But now we will see one of the problems. Yunjin and Bennett are pretty energy heavy, and even though I'm using 2 Favonius weapons here, I have issues to actually get my bursts up. So yeah, I'm trying to get at least my Yunjin burst for the next rotation and then kill the Shroom. That's an issue. Let's see how Coppelia goes. And for Coppelia we can see we don't have our ult with Bennett. In fact, it's very low. And there is a big issue. I'm trying to funnel some stuff on him, but yeah, it takes a while. Now we get up Zhongli, get a Favonius proc, get our ults up, and then start blasting. Took quite a bit to set up at first though, and now we can see something else. Second rotation, we actually don't have that much issues this time with energy. Bennett is already full, Yunjin as well. It's basically very reliant on how much our Favonius proc at my energy recharge stats. And yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this team. I'm not really good at using it, as you can see. And yeah, let's hope the next team is a bit better. Generally, I don't really like playing Mono Pyro, so forgive me. Of course, you could use Xiangling, but my Xiangling isn't that well built on level 80, so I don't know how good that is, but we have one more option. Anyway, let's look at the stats. And there is actually not much to talk about. This is the worst time we had. Probably also my fault because I didn't build the team well. But to be honest, in a mono Pyro or double Pyro, double Geo team with 2 Favonius weapons, you think you should be okay with energy, but I wasn't. Of course, if I would reset, Coppelia would be way faster, and my highest damage at 85,000 is pretty solid. So the team is definitely a fine option, you just have to know what you are doing, and I'm just really bad at it. But as said, we do have another type of team, another type of mono Pyro. Let's see how this fares. Alright, there's not much to talk about, it's the same team, this time with Kazuha, to shred the Pyro resistance. If we want to go even more offensive, we can switch Zhongli for Yunjin, but because of the energy issues I didn't feel very confident in this, and making 2 Pyro team videos was enough for me, because as I said, I don't really like mono Pyro. Other alternative is of course using something like Xiangling as the 3rd Pyro and just go ham. We go with this, let's see how it goes. And of course we start with Azimon, and of course the quality drops even more. I'm somewhat hesitant to use Kazuha's burst here. I then attack with Yoimiya, swap out prematurely, use Kazuha's buff now, which isn't that great against these things. I thought like Geo might be good, but as you can see it didn't do that much. Then I swap to Yoimiya without her arrows, and now try to set up again. But that was quite a bit early, and yeah, because of that I'm losing a lot of damage here. Because now I don't deal any damage at all anymore. Trying to get some extra stuff in. Now I use Yoimiya's Pyro arrow and you can see she deals way more damage than I did before. With the normal arrows I should have just done that beforehand. And now we have to wait till he gets back up. This is probably our worst Azimon that we did at all. But to be honest, I don't want to redo it, because it's RNG anyway. Let's go to Jade. Alright. The Jade Bloom should be way easier to maintain. Use our shield, use our burst, and just attack. Why didn't I use Kazuha's burst? I'm not quite sure, to be honest. Would have just been constant pyro damage swirls. I think I have kept it for energy reasons in the end. Now I think I use it? No, I don't. I'll just attack and attack and attack. It's fine, I left by accident, but this fight was of course way better. And for the last fight of this video, we go against Coppelia, of course against swirls. We still don't swirl with Kazuha, or use his burst. I'm not sure why I don't do that actually. Anyway, we attack, and attack, and attack. This team is very... yeah, untechnical. That's one positive thing about this team. You don't really have to care about anything, just smack out your stuff and then at some point you will kill the enemy. However, this fight again, because of my energy issues on Bennett, doesn't go that well. You saw my Bennett build. Is it just really bad, or am I just unlucky with Favonius procs and Zhongli? Like, what the hell is going on? I'm not sure. Like, even with Kazuha I can generate more energy and get more stuff, but it just doesn't feel that great. Anyway, here we go, and let's look at our last stats of this video. And obviously they are really bad. Azimon took 71 seconds, granted that was my own skill issue. Let's take over 30 seconds away from that and we have a better time than the other Mono Pyro team. The Terror Shroom was really fast actually with 30 seconds, very nice. Coppelia however took 65 seconds, which yeah, isn't that great. The highest damage was at 92,000, which makes sense because we had the Pyro resistance shred and Pyro damage bonus. If we want to get any better on Monopyro teams, we have to bring in Xiangling or Yunjin for extra damage instead of Zhongli. Alright, that's it for this video. Those are all the teams I wanted to show. There is still another type of Yoimiya team that I didn't show off. Basically a virgin team. You swap in Nahida or other good dendro applicators with Yoimiya, and then you trigger some virgin and vaporize and whatever. I usually at the start I called it Yoimiya Chaos when Collei came, and I made a small little video for it, but there is actually more to that team. But I personally just don't like playing Bloom teams, and I didn't want to equip the characters for that as well, so I refrained from showing that off. After all, I already embarrassed myself with the Monopyro team. Anyway, I hope this video is maybe interesting for one or two of you. Maybe you found a team that you really like with Yoimiya, or that you were surprised in. For example, the Kazuha teams with Viridescent Venera's Worlds. They are really, really strong. I was very shocked seeing how strong just the Funira Kazuha team is in itself. Even though the double Hydro is of course also very good and a bit more consistent, let's say, the Furina team just melted everything down. It was crazy. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.